Neil from Essex here. Out today with Bob and Jim, who are giving us a little bit of a rundown on WolfeRidge log splitters. I did a lot of firewood when I was like 14 years old. I had a little business called the Firewood Farm. Actually, we put little flyers in people's mailboxes at church, and that's how I bought my first car. But this is a whole next level experience for me. So we're gonna get a little help from these gentlemen here today, who are gonna show us some of the technique of running a high volume, high output log splitter. It's the way that I could never explain to you completely. Jim, tell me a little bit. So you've got a day job.
I have a full-time job, and we do firewood for health reasons, but also for a family business that kind of just keeps growing. This is actually my second WolfeRidge splitter. I had my first one for about 2 years, and we outgrew it. We needed to grow faster, and we needed more production. So we ended up needing to travel to get a WolfeRidge, and that's how I worked with Bob and Neil to make Message or have Message be a vendor, and we were able to now source locally.
So explain to me a little bit. We'll do some other videos later talking through more of the product line, but what makes this splitter special?
This splitter specifically is the 35 SHO with the diesel on it. This is like the biggest, baddest splitter that we make. So Jim had before a 35C compact commercial, 35C compact commercial, which is a different frame from this. When you get into the HO and the SHO, now you've got a road axle, and again, having that option for the diesel engine. This thing has a super fast cycle time. It's still economical on fuel, and the production, it's just huge.
You mentioned road axle, and when we were talking application stuff before, you said you trailer this thing around.
Yeah, not everybody has a firewood business, so we use this in a business application, but not full time. We will travel to the mountains and split firewood for cabins. We'll travel to family members that will only burn for recreational, and we'll split. We have a tree come down in someone's yard, we'll go help them out. We're big on helping seniors as well, so it's so easy to hook to a pickup and move around.
A little bit more road-worthy than what you might find in a little box store splitter.
Yeah. But yet it's so well positioned in gravity that you can hook it up easily one person. You don't need an army of people because it's so well centered.
So my reference point for log splitters is like 14-year-old me with the little valve on top of the cylinder going front and back, right? This is a different world. So talk me through each valve segment here. What are all these levers doing?
Okay, so this is a full commercial grade splitter, and each valve here I can go over left to right. First, we've got the log lift, and your little box store splitter won't have a log lift at all. This has an extended log lift on it, and when I push this way, we can bring it up, and when I go this way, we'll go down with it. Next, we have the hydraulic wedge height adjustment. So this SHO splitter comes with the 4-way and the 6-way wedge. It's hydraulically adjustable height-wise, and it's completely removable as well. So if I pull down on it this way, I will lower the wedge, and if I push up on it, I'll raise it up. And then we've got the actual control levers for the ram itself. And this has got auto cycle on it. So what we'll do is we'll put both of these valves forward, and then we don't have to do anything else. The ram will come all the way forward, split the wood, and then it'll trip out one of them, and then it'll go all the way home, and it'll trip out the other. And you can still run the splitter manually if you want to. You have a forward cycle. When it gets to the end here, it would stop that, and then you can push it back and retract it as well.
So controls are pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
All makes sense to me.
Yeah.
What blew my mind is when we were over here splitting and watching Jim put all this stuff to use.
Yeah.
So me making observations here. When I was watching you use this log lift, my mind always was the log lift is to lift logs, but you seem to use it in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, you're able to use it as a log lift, but also as a table and a sort table. So I can either stack this by myself full, and then I don't have to run around to grab rounds. I can run a whole group through, or I can use it for a very large round. I'm capable of well over a 400-pound round to be able to lift it up in a controlled manner, roll it onto the beam, split it into quarters or sixths or whatever wedge I have on, and then I'm in a manageable piece that I can use to feed. So I'm able to use that long table for sorting as well.
Bob, what's the thinking in the teeth that are across here?
So that'll kind of keep the logs in place as you're bringing them up, instead of them wanting to slide off, because sometimes you'll get wet wood or something like that, and as you're bringing the logs up, they'll want to slip off. This just gives a little bit of grip for the logs to kind of hold on to as it's coming up.
Okay, and we're sitting here basically about level. Do you tend to run this level, or this will go up?
If I'm rolling around and using it as a lift, I will run it above and it'll actually slowly roll it onto the beam.
So on the wedge itself then, this is gonna hydraulically move up and down. My thinking initially was I'm setting this up basically to center it on the log every time, but watching you, that's not what you were doing.
Now, and as you process wood, you'd learn different techniques. For me, I'll actually run the round against me. I set the wedge so the bottom splits are what I'm looking for size-wise, because then I'm not fighting wedges underneath to get the piece back out. So I'll run the through, pick the bigger piece out, set it on the sort table, the second split piece on, and run it through. That allows me to keep efficiently moving the ram moving while I still sort to get my split size.
So that gives you some consistency in your size then, right? Because that's essentially whatever goes underneath the wedge is the size that you're looking for?
Correct. So I set it for the height that I'm looking for. If it is too wide, I can pick it up and run it through again and top split it. But for us, our customers like the smaller splits, and maybe not quite this small, but that allows us to really control. So that's why people ask me why I bought such a machine of this size for a small firewood business. It's really that control. I'm very fine tuning the wedge height. I'm not just running it through the center every time. I'm really trying to minimize the strokes, but get the right size wood.
Do you find yourself adjusting that a lot?
All the time.
All the time.
Yeah, and that's why it's critical why I chose WolfeRidge. I'm able to switch between the 4, the 6, or the 12 in seconds. You just simply pick it up and you can set it aside and put it back on. So there is a pin that keeps it for safety reasons. So you can adjust it, change the wedges out. If I'm running, a tree will have 4-inch, 6-inch pieces up to 30, 40-inch pieces. Yeah. So to maximize my efforts, I change that wedge out pretty regularly, and I'm always changing the height.
So, Bob, when we were talking through wedge options a lot, you talked about trash frequently.
Yeah.
So your different options here would be 4-way is what comes on most all the machines.
Yeah. All of the machines, all of the horizontal machines include a 4-way. On the lower end models, it's mechanically adjusted, it's bolted, but once you get to a 28 Pro or above, it's hydraulic, which, like Jim said, it's really nice to be able to adjust that on the fly. Now, you can also, the SHO comes with a 6-way also. As you do more split sizes, you're gonna get more chaff and kindling pieces, kind of like this. The way that Jim's doing it, he's getting very minimal amount of that because of the method that he's doing. When he's shaving off those bottom pieces, and then top splitting is a good thing that you mentioned too, because you're not having to mess with your wedge. Nope. You're not, because if you wanted the top split, or if you wanted to just 2-way split a bigger piece, and you put it down here, you're gonna make kindling, but you're putting it up here. Get your hand out of the way once the ram makes contact, and that's a really good technique. Now you can put on the compact commercials, the HOs and the SHOs, you can get as big as a 12-way wedge for this. Now, we recommend going with a 35-ton, which this one is, for the 12-way wedge, and you still got to be kind of selective of your wood. You got to read it, and that's another point that you were touching on earlier too. But the more splits that happen, the more kind of kindling pieces you'll end up with. That's just the nature of it.
In the wedge itself.
Yep, exactly.
So in terms of operating technique then, when you have those larger wedges, do you change the way that you're running the machine?
I try to center. Running a 12-way wedge, I'll try to center it as best as I can so that I get the most uniform splits coming out of it. But I'll always still put the crooked end towards this way.
Because you're going to do less re-splits, I guess,
correct.
with the more ways, but then you end up with more trash.
Exactly. So it's a trade-off.
Right. So to your point, you're getting a lot more control by being able to set that wedge where you want and feed those pieces off the bottom.
It's really at the product you're looking to make. This size machine, box wedge, is very common and pretty. I chose to go to the individual wedges because I can customize for each customer for me. So if I'm making bundle wood, I can very efficiently make bundle wood. Yeah. But if I go to a customer that says, I have 2 trees the tree service took down and I just want to split it up for my boiler, I can just put a 6-way or a 12-way on and just pound them right through, and then I don't actually have to change any of the wedges.
So the one product-wise, the one differentiation between this splitter and some of the lower tier ones is the size of this.
Yeah, the push block.
Push block. Yep. Does that impact your ability to be able to do top splits like that?
Well, it would. It's a little bit lower then, so you wouldn't be able to put your top split wouldn't be up here, it would be down here.
Okay, so you still have enough height to be able to catch the wedge.
Yeah. So a 28 Pro is where the 8-inch tall push block stops, and then once you get into compact commercial and bigger, then you get this tall push block.
Okay.
and the Magnum package, which was the big push block and the big bore cylinder.
So now the business end of this thing. So once this thing starts going, you watch this. It is like a constant stream of firewood falling off the end of here. So talk me through this. You have the first table here, which is...
This is actually called the sorting table, and Jim's got the optional sorting table extension. And if I move some of this wood off of here, you can see what that sorting table extension does for you. That is, first of all, it gives you extra length so that if you've got somebody helping you, they can kind of toss rounds back to you. But also, all of this stuff that's here is going off the backside, and then you got clean firewood up there.
Okay.
And that seems like a minor detail, but for myself in business, keeping the sawdust and this chaff out of the firewood, if you just leave it in a pile, that creates an environment for moisture, mold, mushrooms, all the things customers don't want to see when they pay premium dollars for firewood. So it's a little detail, but it has been a game changer to be able to sort out without an extra step. It just flows right over top and sorts it out.
Do you do anything, I think you had mentioned earlier, about like keeping a bucket or something down underneath of this to collect that stuff? Have you done anything like that?
If I'm doing it in someone's yard, I'll put a tarp down or the bottom of an IBC tote I've cut to collect them. That way I can take it with me. I don't have to rake their yard and do a cleanup. But in our home processing, I'm able to just keep pushing past, feeding in totes and conveyors, and then I don't have to have the cleanup.
So it took us a matter of minutes, literally, especially when you're running the machine, to start to accumulate a huge pile down here at the end. So how do people handle then the huge output of this machine?
These are almost built for some type of automatic removal system, whether if it be a conveyor. I personally use an IBC tote cage. They've become very popular over the last couple of years, but I have the front cut out. Hundreds of videos out there on the proper, unique ways. But then I can use the tractor and forks just to place them wherever I want to without actually handling that firewood a second time. So
in your case, you're not stacking into the tote.
Nope.
You're just sitting the tote right down here at the
Correct.
end and just
and the height,
ramming it all in.
that's one of the loves of WolfeRidge. The height is perfect, so I can use the jack, stabilizing jack, to get the height perfect.
Okay.
The push block will push it in, and I can fill an IBC tote more than halfway just by using the push block.
Okay.
And then I just have to finish it with this big long table. I can 2 or 3 times just throw it in, I'm full.
File goes up on top. Cool. So you'd have conveyor options then for many people too.
Yeah, and the way that this is designed, our conveyor hopper sits perfectly after the sorting table extension. So if you wanted to, you could put a, like Jim was saying, a half a IBC tote or a tarp or something like that. So everything is passing through this before it gets into the conveyor. So you're really minimizing the amount of chaff and debris that's going into the conveyor. And I want to touch on one more thing, is height. The working height of these machines, this is 32, the beam is 32 inches high. So how tall are you?
I'm 6'1".
And I'm 6. So putting stuff here, we're not going like this. You know, a lot of splitters will be lower to the ground, so people are crouching, and you know that puts a strain on your back all day. So HOs and SHOs are 32-inch beam height, and even our 17 RS all the way up to the 35C compact commercial, those are 31. So it's a good working height.
And that is something you talk about, working height and this lift table. And this is something, again, just me understanding this stuff for the first time. Log lift is a lot more than log lift.
Yeah.
Right? It's also your place over here to stack things, even if you've got smaller rounds and stuff. You pile them all up right here and then pound them right through.
Yeah.
And the other big advantage to the table at the end is it allows me to resplit. So if I'm working by myself and I get some larger pieces, before it would drop off the end. Now this is an option, but it's a very valuable option for me because I'm able to reach it without it going into the final destination and pull it back while the ram's moving. So I can reach it without walking around. It makes it very efficient.
Yeah, efficient in terms of productivity, but also like saving your body.
Yeah. If you want to do this for 4, 6 hours, 8 hours, you got to minimize where you can.
Yeah, and this extension table will fit on any of the horizontals. So even the 17 RS already has the provisions to put this on.
Okay. It just square holes at the end
Square
and it
holes
slides
and 2
right
pins,
in.
yep.
Another thing that you told me has a big impact on productivity that was a little surprising to me was engine selection.
Yeah.
And how does that play out here?
So Jim got the biggest and the baddest of what we offer. This is a Kubota D902. We call it a 25 horse engine. It's
24.8.
Okay.
Yep.
It's 24.8. You know these engines well.
Yep.
The standard engine option on a 35 SHO is a Honda GX630. So it's a V-twin, manual choke. It's still got a ton of power to run this machine. And then there's an option for an IGX 800, which has EFI, an electronic governor on it, an electronic throttle, no choke, easy to start. The diesel is easy to start too. The diesel is probably the most fuel efficient, but it is the top tier.
Right.
It's the top of the line. All of our splitters, though, are still using Honda engines. We're going to use commercial grade Honda engines on everything. Even a 17 RS has a Honda GX on it. That's what we use. We want to use commercial grade quality engines, and that's what we do.
We have a lot of respect for like Honda GX, right? It is a great product.
Yeah.
In operation, you would have had a Honda on your old unit before too, correct?
Yeah.
Correct, I did. I switched out mainly runtime and fuel efficiency were my biggest.
And what was the feel difference in terms of the machine itself? I mean, obviously diesel's got a lot more torque. Does that play out in your productivity?
It definitely does. So the having the gas engine, it would pump down. You would see the pressure drops and the push through and the two-stage. Yeah. With the diesel, it doesn't matter if I run a crotch white oak through it or if I'm running a poplar. It just smooth sailing.
I did hear stage 2 a couple times when you were running it, but the engine didn't care.
No,
it's not like dogging it down. And he went from a 35C, which has a smaller pump, still a 35-ton cylinder. But when you go to a SHO, if you would have had the Honda engine on the SHO, that would have been a V-twin, whereas it was a single cylinder on the 35C.
Correct.
So the cycle time, I guess what I'm saying is if he went from a gas engine 35C to a gas engine SHO, he would have still been a 1.5 seconds faster cycle time. Yeah. And then you add the next step up engine, and then you add the diesel and that 38 gallon per minute pump, this thing just flies.
So most of what you're getting there between those engine selections is torque differences, right?
Well, horsepower and torque, but
okay.
The biggest thing, so the IGX 800 is also 25 horse, and when you go to this diesel, it's still 25 horse, but the torque on this is massively larger than what that IGX
and
800 is.
feels out. You can notice that when you push a big piece through a complex
Especially
wedge.
if you're doing tree service wood. If you're buying firewood poles, you won't notice it quite as much, but with tree service, you're getting gnarly twisted cherries and you're getting some ugly pin oaks. In this area, pin oaks are huge. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
There are crotches everywhere, so you notice a big difference with tree service wood.
Cool. So if we could touch on fuel economy for a little bit, because we talked about engines, I've got a personal fuel economy story. So I went from a Kubota diesel zero-turn mower to a 40 horsepower EFI gas. And I could run around behind this machine with a 5-gallon gas can. How does that play out in a log splitter, right? Because the torque, the loads are different in this.
And you don't think about it when you first buy your machine. So when I had the 35C with the GX Honda motor in it, I could run about 2 hours, and then I had to shut the machine down, I'd let it cool a little bit, and then I'd refuel it. And I would, through an 8-hour day, you're doing that 4 times, which adds up. But it also is the amount of fuel you're going through. I actually added a fuel barrel at the house because I got tired of going to the gas station. And then as our business grew, and I had a hard decision between the 25 horse gas and the diesel, and I simply chose, because of fuel economy and being able, I can fill this tank up and run it for 3 days with filling it up with one time in the morning without having to stop.
That is in line a little bit with our experience. So this is a D902. This engine is in everything, right? Pretty much if you're Kubota land, standard L series and down, every tractor has an option that runs that block. 1/2 gallon to 3/4 gallon an hour is our experience in a tractor when it's like under full load. Do you have a sense of how that plays out on a log splitter?
I would have to look at the actual specs, but I believe it's less than that because whenever it's not pushing, if I'm moving rounds around, especially if I'm by myself, it won't be burning as the same as when I'm pushing through it.
You have such an intermittent load here, right? Compared to say like a zero-turn mower that's always in thick grass.
Correct, yeah.
So yeah, you're even below that 1/2 gallon
It's going to depend too, if you're doing a whole bunch of like heavy tree service wood all day, it's going to labor a little more and it's going to use more fuel.
Correct. And these machines will shear. So when you get those ugly crotches, it's not a matter of it's going to stall. It'll literally cut through all that and you'll see it as a shear, not a split. And it's just something you don't see in box store wedges or box store machines. And that's where the diesel really just stages down and runs right through it. But I don't see a huge difference in fuel economy with the diesel.
I'm going to give you a challenge now. We could sit here all day long and make these beautiful like 2x3 inch perfect pieces of wood. But how do we get like the real crotchety, nasty stuff through?
Yeah, we'll just start this thing up and adjust the wedge. We'll hammer it right through it.
Let's give it a go. So this is a great example. So this nasty Y here, I guess, is what this would have been in the tree, right?
Correct.
Are you doing anything special to line this up and run it through the machine?
The little smaller machines, you really have to rely on technique a little more than brute horsepower. With this machine, I can line it up, and this is what they call a shear. You can see it just cut that. It didn't actually split it because
it actually cut across the grain.
Cuts across the grain. In the smaller resplits in the compact commercials, maybe the 28 Pro, you do want to position the crotch and kind of read the wood so that you split it first against the wedge instead of fighting it from the back end. You have a little more power there.
Okay.
But you'll learn to read the wood as you're splitting it, but it depends on your machine.
So in the case of this thing, you line it up and just pound it right through.
It doesn't matter.
You don't even have to think about it.
No. There's another example of it. Sheared, this was a double crotch, so we had a limb here and a limb here. You can see it sheared both sides of it along with your split.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's a pleasure having you out here today. Bob, I totally geek out on like purpose-built, high-capacity stuff, and this is amazing. And Jim, I couldn't do this at this point, right? I mean, the time that you've taken to sit here and run this machine it shows off, right? In the capacity that you get through it. If somebody here locally is looking for firewood, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, we're Burning Embers Firewood Service. We're here in Mount Joy. You can find us on Google. We do small stuff up through big bulk deliveries.
Okay. And Messick's here now is a dealer for WolfeRidge line. Bob's our sales rep. Great company so far, extremely responsive to anything that we've needed. Super guys when it comes to understanding their product.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, it's been a cool relationship so far. Great line to add here, right? Messick's has done stuff with a lot of you guys who do firewood for a long time, right? Many people also have skid steers, tractors, other stuff from us. This is a great complement to the other machinery that we've already put out there. So hopefully this can kind of round out the line of the needs of somebody who might be doing commercial scale firewood. So if you're shopping for a piece like this and we can help, or if you have parts or service needs for a machine you've already got, give us a call at Messick's. We're available at 800-222-3373 or check us out at messicks.com.
We picked like the hottest day of the year so far, or is it?
It is.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Beats the rain.
Yeah.
Though it still feels like it's raining.
It's raining down my back.
Yes, exactly.